I'd like to bring the Board of Selectmen meeting to order on September 9th, 2021. First item on the agenda is to take action on meeting minutes from August 12th, 19th, and 26th.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And take action on a one-day alcohol license for Chesterwood for a wedding to be held on October 2nd, 2021, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll make a motion, we accept it.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay. Next on the agenda is we have appointments to the Housing Trust Committee. And I move that we appoint Jay Bukowski, Mark Mills, Nancy Socha, Tom Sharp, and also Patrick White as our representative to the Housing Trust Committee. And just so the public knows, the purpose of this committee is to create a housing trust proposal, i.e. a bylaw for approval by the select board and ultimately the voters at annual town meeting to make that trust official, to create an action plan, to propose a budget, and to define the housing trust initiatives. For example, one might be incenting young families and first-time home buyers to locate in Stockbridge. So that is the purpose. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have appointments to the Pilot Committee, and we will be reappointing Jay Bukowski of the Finance Committee, Gary Pitney of the Assessors, and Tom Stokes. And I would like to be a part of this Pilot Committee group as a representative for the Select Board.
Make a motion, we appoint.
I'll make a motion, we accept that.
I thought I just did.
Okay, I'll second your motion.
Never get.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're going to have a nice quick meeting tonight. This may be the longest part, and this is kind of a concern. We do have Tri-Town Health Department has put out a directive on it's effective September 7th. And primarily, I could read through this whole thing, but the concern right now is the Delta variants are now accounting for approximately 98% of positive cases in Massachusetts. And cases have started to appear in the towns of Lee, Lenox, and Stockbridge. So they're very concerned at this point. And in talking to Jim and hearing Jim in various meetings, one of the big concerns of the health departments in general is that if we continue to have these breakthrough cases and it gets any worse than it is right now, or much worse, that they are concerned about potentially having business closures advised by the governor. So as of September 7th at 12:01 a.m., the following directives have been implemented. So appropriate CDC-approved masks or face coverings shall be worn in all indoor spaces in the Tri-Town District communities of Lee, Lenox, and Stockbridge, unless seated at a table consuming food and/or drink. A sign shall be posted at the entrance of all buildings. And they have a link to the Tri-Town Health site in this communique. So if you go out to the Tri-Town Health Department site, you can get a copy of a sign, or you can simply make your own sign. Food service establishment employees shall wear a mask or face covering when serving customers both indoors and outdoors. Masks shall also be required in crowded outdoor public events and where physical distancing at least 6 feet or more cannot be maintained. This includes, but is not limited to, events held at fairgrounds and parks, outdoor performance and event venues, restaurants, etc. So a big heads up for that wedding that we just gave the permit for, the alcohol license. Masks must fit snugly but comfortably, etc. So there's some detailing about the mask, but fundamentally, an effective mask, and I think most of us at this point have one. Event planners and/or any organization shall consider postponement of any outdoor or indoor event gathering where social distancing of a minimum of 6 feet per person cannot be maintained. They are also encouraging community members to get vaccinated and stay at home if you're showing signs of symptoms. Get tested for COVID-19 if you have new or unexplained symptoms before and after traveling, and/or if you've been exposed. If at risk of exposure, call and schedule a test at 1-855-BMC-LINK. That's 1-855-BMC-LINK. More information on COVID-19 can be found on the tritownhealth.org page or mass.gov or cdc.org websites. So that being said, I just want to give a couple of statistics. Mike, can you pull this up on the screen?
Yes.
This page with this chart?
Yep, just give me 1 second, I'll get it up.
Okay, so I think everybody should be aware of these facts because it's concerning. So he has a table here, a COVID-19 update, and this again is September 7th. July total cases in Lee were 2, Lenox was 8, and Stockbridge was 2. August total cases jumped to 36 in Lee, 29 in Lenox, and 9 in Stockbridge. July and August, the percentage of cases that were fully vaccinated in both Lee and Stockbridge, 45% of those positive cases were fully vaccinated people. In Lenox, 62% of the people who came down with COVID were fully vaccinated. So there's a good amount of household spread, obviously. Lee is 53% related to household spread, Lenox 41%, and Stockbridge 44%. And July and August, what's interesting is the number related to workplace exposure is 0 in Lee, 0 in Stockbridge, but 4 in Lenox. Now, I'm going to presume that's because Lenox has an enormous commercial amount of space. They have many businesses, much more than certainly Stockbridge, but also more than Lee. So I'm going to guess that may be why. And I know in Stockbridge, Elm Street Market's been cautious and they've been requiring masks to come in. But now everyone should be doing that. So all businesses should be doing that, and all of us should take great precautions at the moment. And as a follow-up, for all Stockbridge seniors, and we were discussing how do you qualify as a senior? I'm assuming it's 60 and up.
It should, yes. Should be, yes.
So there will be a flu vaccination clinic. I don't know what high and regular dose means, but COVID-19 vaccine is available. First and second dose and third dose for those that are immunocompromised and are eligible for it. And that will be Tuesday, September 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. in the town hall parking lot. And they ask that you please bring your insurance card and obviously wear a mask. And this is being sponsored by the Community Health Program, Stockbridge Council on the Aging, and Southern Berkshire Public Health Collaborative. So I think it's really important for those of you who haven't been vaccinated to please consider getting vaccinated, not only for your own sake, but for the community's sake.
Quick, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you probably saw the news today that the Josh has decided, or Tanglewood rather, BSO has decided that they're going to allow the drop off of the race participants at the parking lot, but there's going to be no socializing, no event, no family members, no like tailgating, no party, none of that. Traditionally, the Causeway, White Pines Beach a little bit, certainly around me, the intersection of Hawthorne Road and Hawthorne Street, all the way to the boat ramp and especially Gold Meadows has been sort of a place where people might watch. And this year where there's going to be no ability for, us, people who want to kind of, support their friends or loved ones who are actually participating in the race, there's not going to be any place to do that that's official. I'm wondering if we have a plan to just make sure we don't get a lot of an alternative crowds at these Stockbridge venues that are going to be abutting basically where the race is taking place. I'm not saying we should, I'm just raising the question. I'm anticipating that since the usual place, Tanglewood, is not going to be available,
Right.
that they may kind of, naturally want to support things.
My understanding is they were looking at what alternatives they have, and there's actually a meeting that might be over already, but was being conducted with public safety, public services.
Yeah, I talked to the senior person at BSO tonight and got, this is coming from BSO, like senior management.
Right, but as far as the rest of the race, there was a meeting.
Oh, I see.
With
Okay.
Chief Henley.
Oh, okay.
Foley,
Good.
and others about the race and that, so.
Yeah.
I'll follow up in the morning with them on what was happening as far as that.
Right. Okay. I mean, I don't know if that's even appropriate, but
Did you get any kind of a feeling of whether or not they were even thinking about canceling?
no, they're trying to be supportive, and the decision has been made that they're going to basically allow for the drop off and pickup of folks. And then I guess at the Lennox Community Center, people can, if they win or they get a medal or something, they can pick them up in the Lennox Community Center later on the 19th, late afternoon.
Okay,
So-
Well, they cut the number down.
They already did that. Yeah, they limited the 300 teams. But, I mean, I always walk up the top of my street and watch, and there's always 50, 100 people there parked along the street and doing all these things. And I just anticipate people are going to want to watch. It's the end of the race. It's like, it's like watching the Mass Marathon,
Yeah, they cut the numbers down, but they also haven't met, I don't think, half of the participants yet, as far as.
We had 260 signed up as of that first Eagle article.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's teams. I'm not worried about the teams so much as the spectators.
Well,
right,
Right.
not much you can
right.
do.
Well, there's not much we can do. The only potential thing I can think of that we could do is talk to Chief Fennelly and anybody else who's going to be monitoring. And maybe we just make sure that we have masks available, that you can suggest someone wear a mask if people are not masking up, or if they just don't have one, we could then easily provide them or have them in strategic locations. I don't know.
Or we could limit parking too.
I'll touch base with the chief and find out what was discussed tonight.
Right.
Thank you.
Then moving forward.
Hi, Hugh.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Hey there. Haven't seen you forever.
On your agenda, I don't want to interrupt it.
Well, we're right at the
Done.
end, so
It's never an interruption. What's on
it's
your
a
mind?
short one.
Configuration you got here.
We call it the prison setup.
Yeah.
I have a question for Roxanne and Chuck,
Yeah,
and I think it really deserves some counsel from your town attorney.
Uh-oh.
And not me?
okay.
No,
All right. I don't know if this is going to.
How did we get so
if
lucky?
I'm not mistaken, you voted 2-1 to approve special permit for 20 Mackinac Shores.
No, that was 3-0.
No, it was unanimous vote.
I'm sorry?
It's gotta be,
It's a unanimous vote.
I'm sorry that whole issue right now is before the Conservation Commission as to whether we should fine them for the violations that they have already committed.
yes.
Yes,
But-
And, but, because I've been keeping that place under a microscope for the entire year, day by day. And the violations haven't gone away. As of yesterday and the day before yesterday and
Right.
the day before yesterday, the violations still exist. And yet you give them a special permit. I want to know why and what justification you had to do that.
well, when we make a determination on a special permit, that is outside of the purview of what we can make a consideration upon. We have to look at what our code is. We have to make sure that it abides by the bylaws. So that's the only criteria that we can take under consideration. Your issues are Conservation Commission issues, and you did vote to fine them And that's fine, but that cannot come into play in any discussion on granting a special permit for a building. It's irrelevant to that particular decision. So we cannot bring that into our conversation. If we did, we would then be liable to be sued or taken to court, to land court. And they would try to overturn it, and they probably would.
I, as a
I,
citizen of the town of Stockbridge, who helped you get elected, amongst other things, strongly object to the fact that that happened.
well, our hands are pretty much.
I mean, it's a law, you have to abide by it.
Right.
But it is nonsense.
Right. On the other hand, the Conservation Commission it's completely within your authority to impose those fines. Absolutely.
And we back you 100% on that.
Yeah.
And John, it came to us because the LPOD requires both the planning board and the select board to permit the building of homes in the LPOD. That is, our jurisdiction is the building of the house. It has nothing to do with whether or not the erosion controls are in place were adequate, or whether or not they violated other things.
Right.
The law doesn't allow us to take that into play. Our jurisdiction is on whether or not the pre-existing non-conforming house that they demolished met certain, certain criteria. The new house meets certain criteria that are determined by that pre-existing non-conforming house. That's the limit of our jurisdiction.
Not more.
But on that note,
Yeah.
An unidentified person pointed out to me that the setback restrictions were being violated by the fact that the second floor was bigger than the first floor.
I think that they did it.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And I also think they did away, and I'm not sure of this, but I think they did away with the overhangs.
There's no overhangs.
There's no overhangs. It's the same footprint.
That's the last I heard.
And look, I think that it's also important to just remind ourselves that we wrote the bylaws. The town did. The people of the town wrote the bylaws.
Hopefully they'll.
Well, let me finish. If folks like the consultants, whether they're the engineers or the lawyers, or the applicant, him or herself, come up with ways to meet the letter of the bylaws we wrote.
Right.
And we don't, it's not up to them to rewrite our bylaws. It's up to them to figure out what they can build that sits within the bylaw. And I was skeptical, if you watch the tape, but I got advice from Donna, from town council, and from our town administrator, and, from a plain read, once it was explained to me what the numbers we could use are, that they were in the letter of the bylaw. Now, I think not Jeff's project, of Mr. Ray's project, but I think in general, the LPOD, the purpose of it was to sort of avoid having giant McMansions built on really tiny parcels. And I think it's a reasonable question for us to explore whether the spirit of that law is really being addressed by the specifics of the law. But that is a town meeting. That is an issue for our board or the planning board and town meeting. It is not fair to basically make it seem that the applicant is doing something wrong because they read the plain read of the bylaw and then build the house on what it allows.
I get it, but when they come to us, they come
Separate.
down
Yeah.
with a set of plans, and we look at the plans, and we go to a site visit, and everything looks hunky-dory.
Right.
We say, go for it. And then they don't follow the plans until all of a sudden bells and whistles go off because they are violating the LPOD for one thing, but they're violating just about every other thing that they could possibly violate that they didn't put in the plans. What are we supposed to do, Patrick?
You can do what's within your authority to do, and we can only do what's within our authority to do. So fundamentally, if they don't build
Right.
building that we saw this plan for, and we did put a condition on it. If they don't do that, that's up to Ned Baldwin, our building inspector, to make sure that that is obeyed. Now, in terms of the conservation issues, that's a whole other ball of wax, and that really falls within your authority as a
And I'll give you-
Conservation Commission.
And I'll give you an example, John. You know, you had an applicant who subsequent to the application clear cut a lot. And literally at 8:30, the day after that meeting, I was on the phone with Michael looking at, because there was some interpretation that if it's under a foot in diameter, we can cut it as brush kind of thing. And I have zero tolerance for that sort of thing. And we're looking at ways to make sure that the bylaws don't allow that. And if they do, I personally will make it a priority to address it. Because I understand that folks sometimes have creative interpretations of thing and we, you know, but it's not like this board, or at least speaking for myself and talking to the town administration, that we're not sensitive to and paying attention to
Right.
what these issues are.
There were a lot of conversations over this one.
Which also brings me to one of the major reasons I walked in here. And that is that I've been banging on this can since you became elected to selectmen. And that is.
The 1990s?
Sorry. It was the 1780s.
Feels like it.
At any rate, the chairmans of our boards, at least monthly, need to meet with you guys.
Amen.
Just to say what's going on. Because otherwise, you guys are getting a story that might not be really the real story.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing something in front of us, put down on the table in front of us, engineers put plans down in front of us, this is what's happening. And then we go and we find out that that's not what's happening.
Right.
You don't need to know that. Of course you need to know that.
Yes,
But
I agree.
But in our defense,
Board, whose chair I have a problem with, I might add, but you know, it's the whole 9 yards.
Right.
I mean, Ron Broker is a great chairman of our Conservation Commission.
Right.
And, you know, I just think that even if we all come together once a month, just once a month.
Well, I would like that, and we've talked about it before. How we're going to do it with our department head meetings, and what we can do is rotate them in. But don't think for a minute that we're not communicating, because we do. We know that we talk to each other.
You know, this whole thing, I mean, I'm a brochure distributor, everybody's paper's out the window, bullshit. It's not out the window. You know, it's a tangible thing you hold on to, and who goes to the brochure recs? Women go to the brochure recs, men don't. And who plans what happens that day? Women. Anyway, you know, all of these lessons have been coming to me in terms of marketing, and you know, Stockbridge is doing a pretty good job of marketing itself, I might add, thanks to the chamber.
Yeah.
But, you know, communication, face-to-face communication is really kind of important.
but you know, and
important.
also like, if you look at just in the past 6 months to a year, you know, often, almost always, at least one of us attends either the planning board or Conservation Commission. You know, a second thing is, you know, we specifically revived the Agriculture and Forestry Commission, especially, you know, certainly that eventually I think there'll be some farming stuff, but initially it's a lot of forestry issues. And then the other thing that we're working on, you know, is really kind of getting behind clarifying what our regulations need to be around these performance standards that this board, along with Concom, has taken an interest in making sure that, you know, that's better for all sides, that people understand going into a project what our expectations are. And I think we're trying really hard to, you know, I mean, it's not just, you know, ecology or the environment for its own sake. I think that's a big driver of the economy of this town, is the beauty of it and making sure that we can maintain that. And I feel very strongly that these all have to be really high priorities.
That, my friend, is probably the highest priority around.
Yeah, well, we're doing that. I mean,
You know, the turnpike coming through here, as you can.
Oh, killed everything.
was a nightmare, but that's another story.
Creates a lot of farmland potentially.
But I think that the communication between the boards, I mean, 12 meetings a year, what the hell? I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah. No, and Chuck and I have both, Chuck Terry and I had actually talked about this, and including the chairs to come in and make a presentation, just give us an update. And that's true. There's certainly more needed with certain groups rather than other groups. Other groups, like Patrick said, we go to meetings. If I'm not at a meeting, either Zoom or in person, I often watch them afterwards. We see various chairs in town hall. So there's a lot of conversation, but then it's maybe I don't see Parks and Rec very much. So, and I think it's important for the public to get an update of what is everybody doing, not just us.
It's not only important for the public, but, another thing that really irks me, and I don't know, 25 years on the Concom? I don't even know how many years I've been on the But you know what? We have talked about definitive steps that we are going to take. Definitive steps, bang. Usually brought up by yours truly. And eventually they just
Fade away, yeah.
feather away. And you know what? Every single solitary one of them, I mean, the 3-step process for a sequence of work, when somebody comes before us, an applicant comes before us and says, we got this plan. And they put it out on the table. And we look at it and we say, okay, we'll come to a site visit, and we go to the site visit, and there are the plans, and there's the house, and there's the lake, and there's the stream, and there's the wetland or whatever. And we come back and we say, okay, it's a potential violation, or we should do something about that, whether it's, building a white house on the side of Stockbridge Bowl, which is standing out like Grant's tomb or whatever. And then eventually it's just sort of,
But Jen, also, we've been talking about that at Concom for a while now. When I was driving here, I noticed the erosion controls are up at that long driveway on Prospect Hill Road. And I'm certainly not suggesting there's anything wrong with them, but now is the time for that 1, 2, 3-step process to just go in and make sure they got it right, because the erosion fencing, everything is up, all over that
the
property.
driveway going in there
Yeah.
has just gotten to the point where there's a big swamp.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just saying that now's the time.
It's not attached.
Now's the time to get it back on the agenda, because some of this is just the practical, there needs to be follow-up.
It's not attached to anything, so it probably is irrelevant. But my only thing is, guys, please get us all together. I mean, highway department, the Concom, yeah, they're attached. Planning board and the Conservation Commission, yeah, they're attached. We're all attached to each other, but we're not communicating.
Yeah.
And it needs to be done.
I think the last thing we need is, an ongoing commitment when we have new members or with old members or refreshers. These laws, can't speak for the planning board, but the Concom manual is like 300 pages long. It's a lot to know. And there are people who can come in and give us a 2-hour training every now and then on a specific topic like stormwater or, bordering vegetated wetlands. I mean, the stuff is almost dizzying for like a layperson, a volunteer to master. And I think that
Patrick, you and I should get together. I mean, I do brochures, we can come up with bullet points for people who want to do something that involves Concom. I mean, that's an issue, but you know what? The town should pay for it. I mean, I can get those things
Town should pay for it.
$340, 10,000 of them.
Right.
But somebody needs to put it down on paper. Bullet points, boom, 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 boom. So that the homeowner, before the engineer gets involved, knows what they have to do. Now, let me bring to your attention, when I built my home, you remember this, when I built my home, I mean, there were restrictions and I had to abide by scenic mountain stuff and all that good stuff, but I got ripped off. I got ripped off big time by these Czechoslovakian builders. And it wasn't until the end of everything that I found out that I was getting ripped off. Now, if the homeowner who wants to have a project near a lake, near a swamp, near a brook, wants to do something, he knows at least what the hell needs to happen, what he needs to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, here, engineer, didn't work for me.
Right. Well, I mean, basically, you're talking about possibly creating some kind of a flow chart for the processes of permitting whatever.
Exactly. Just simply printed, stuck in the box outside, Eeyore's office.
Right.
But I will say though, that you guys have done a great job and, over the past year, you've had a number of problematic, some going way back and some relatively new, like potentially illegal cuttings on the scenic, in the scenic mountain range, and the fact that I go to the meetings, John, I do know. The fact of the matter is that you guys have been addressing things directly. I've been really, really impressed now that I'm an outsider from the Concom at how diligent in a difficult situation. It's never easy to tell people what they can't do. And yet you guys do it, you guys enforce the rules with aplomb. And I, for one, appreciate it because I think that that's a big part of what makes Stockbridge is how it looks here.
The fact is that, when it comes to, actually cracking the whip and getting the check in the mail, I don't know if that's happening.
Well, I
We can
mean, you
only
have
do
the
the
means
most-
to levy fines, right? So if it's the Conservation Commission that is imposing a fine, then it's the Conservation Commission who has to take the action. And, it depends on what the area is, who's going to react to that. Sometimes it's going to be the police department. Sometimes it might be town administration. Sometimes it might be Conservation Commission. But that's the hard thing about this, what I'm finding out, or I found out, I've learned this, is that the hardest part of government is the follow through. And a lot of that is because we have so many balls in the air all the time. And, I feel sorry for poor Michael Canales coming here as a new town administrator. He's done a great job though. But it's the same thing, I think, for all of us that are involved on a daily basis where there are so many things that are ongoing. And there are new things every day. And so it's very hard. And there's a lot of follow-up that has to keep happening
And
and
one of the-
persistence to it.
One of the things I want to do is I want to call out Hugh Page, who's on the call right here.
Yes.
At yesterday's cemetery commission meeting, they've stopped using pesticides in the cemetery for the past year. And he's like coming up with creative ways to grate the, stones in the driveways and not using it around the headstones, which was my understanding that in the past they used to do. I mean, I think that, so many little ways and in some big ways, like what Hugh's doing, we're really trying to make a big difference. And I just applaud everybody who is kind of, in this together attitude.
And we have, Kate Fletcher has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Roxanne. I agree with John. I mean, I think communication is, we have all the communication tools available in the world. And somehow or another that seems to make it more challenging in some ways. But I would say that, we could do some simple things to, support our boards. One of them is, I know that the planning board just started, select board has been doing it for quite a while, but the planning board is now posting packets for their meetings, which is great because you can just go to the website and, go to agenda and minutes and get the information. And I think if the Concom could do that too, as a planning board member, that would help me to, sort of review the requests that are coming before the planning board because I could see, okay, this is what the Concom has and this is what they're looking at and this is when they're looking at it. So that would be helpful. And then I would also say that training would be really important, especially around the area of special permits. I've noticed for many years there are many different ideas about special permits. And I've been told by the former ED of regional planning, as well as by an attorney, that boards have a fair amount of discretionary control with these special permits. And also the timeline, I think, is a bit different if you look at Mass General Law than what I've heard quoted at a recent meeting. So my feeling is that a lot more care could be taken with the Lake and Pond Overlay District special permits. But I also think that, part of that is increasing understanding and awareness and having some training around that. And if that can't happen at the planning board level, which is very possible, perhaps that could be a topic of a meeting between the two boards, the select board and the planning board. And then if planning board members who want to attend, they can attend. If others don't, they don't need to. But that would be my recommendation, would be to start with some concrete things like that.
Okay, well, I think it's a wonderful suggestion and I think, Michael, maybe you can address trying to create a policy that boards and committees really, if they can, put together meeting packets, that they be posted.
Yep.
Along with the agenda.
We're working on trying to apply that across the board.
Right.
Our secretary, who I want to speak about in a moment, but our secretary sends out the agenda of the future meeting to each and every one of us, both our town of Stockbridge emails and our personal emails, because I don't even have a clue as to how to use my town of Stockbridge email, but that's that. But, she sends meeting minutes from the last meeting and the agenda. So it's all prepped and sent to each and every one of us. If it was sent to you, could it just go out to everybody?
Well, do you want to talk about the remailer idea you had, Roxanne?
Pardon me?
I think you should talk about the remailer idea on the minutes and on the agendas that
That's
you're.
approved minutes. So did you want to respond to this?
Yeah, but we can set up something similar to that. If we can send out approved minutes, we could also send out agendas.
Yeah, right.
Packets in the same thing. So we're looking
Who's
into how we
doing
can
that?
create distribution lists.
The big question is, whose responsibility is that going to become?
Right.
Is that going to be an onerous, is that going to be too much?
It's all automated.
Right.
These things are, once they're posted, it's possible to basically send out an email with a
No, but
link to
what
where
John's
something's posted.
talking about is their initial agenda and the draft minutes for approval. This is before, it's actually been
Yeah,
posted.
it would be the agenda meeting packet.
Right.
Yeah.
And
People could subscribe to that the way they could the minutes.
I don't see why the minutes from the previous meeting need to be questioned before you get to the actual meeting. Because if somebody's got a question about something that's in the minutes from the previous meeting, chances are they're going to attend the meeting and say, hold it.
Yeah.
And which is what I do more often than not when it comes to meetings that I've been at. And so I don't see why you can't put those
I don't see why we can't either, and it's whether or not we could automate the distribution list to automatically send out the agenda and packet for upcoming meetings also.
Packet, but not necessarily the draft minutes. Those are just going to the members.
Not the draft, the final ones. I think it should be the packet
But the
agenda.
packet, typically even your packet includes the draft minutes.
Yeah, and I don't see why that's not good.
Okay.
Because if there's a question that somebody has.
I didn't think our draft minutes were
minutes,
posted.
then it's their purview to come and say, that's not right.
Right, but this can all be automated.
Well, that's what we're looking into, is whether or not, how do others do it? Can it just be something like Code Red that people sign up for and then they would get the agenda?
Right, yeah, because this is what they're doing in Lennox, John, and it's like I had heard about this from someone and checked it out. And in Lennox, if you want to be a recipient of meeting minutes of any board or committee, you can go out there, have an e-subscribe link, and you can pick and choose. Like I'm only interested in the planning board, or I'm only interested in Parks and Rec or something like that. But you can pick and choose which ones you want to receive, and then they're automatically mailed to you once they're approved, obviously, and they're posted.
But does it not get you off the hook if our minutes from the last meeting and our agenda goes on the town website, just period?
It does, but
If somebody wants it, then they can go get it.
Right.
But here's the thing, John, you're in
They're
the
not
printing.
approved minutes at that point. I mean, if you're talking draft, they're not approved. The official ones are the approved ones.
I mean, you're in the printing space. I mean, like obviously if it's outbound, the readership will be so much higher than if it's just posted on the agenda and minutes page of a website. And that's why we're trying to make it so that if someone's got an interest in something, I just subscribed to Lennox's select board minutes, just after you pointed it out. I was like, I went online, I signed up and, I'm curious to see how long it takes them because Charlie's going tomorrow to talk about the Josh. He's presenting to their 5-member board tomorrow morning. And I'm curious to see how long it takes them to get the minutes out to me after the meeting.
You know how much of the Josh Billings race occurs in Lennox? Route 183 from the monument to.
Yeah, it's like the parking lot.
From the corner of Hawthorne Street to the boat landing. I don't even know if that.
No, that's Stockbridge. Hawthorne Street's in Stockbridge. None of the.
I don't think that anything of the Josh happens in Lennox.
Where they end the race and they go into the parking lot and they have to party, that traditionally, that's Lennox and yeah, here.
Yeah.
One other thing and I'll get out of your hair, all right? And that is that somebody's been banging on a can that involves surrounding my head. And I'm gonna be chastised for this. But the fact of the matter is we have a town paid employee who is our secretary to the Conservation Commission, who doesn't have any posted hours. And I think that that's time that happened. Because if somebody has a question about what we do, and at this time with real estate going bananas, there's a lot of questions. A lot of homeowners pending a brochure or whatever can come in the door and say, I'm buying XYZ piece of property.
What do I do?
What are my issues?
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's gonna hang me on a tree up in Rouse Lake.
Why don't we deal with that one? Let Michael,
But,
Yeah. We'll look into it.
yeah.
my tax dollars.
Yeah.
Use.
I just would second John's comment. I mean, I think that it's important for residents to be able to know when they can reach part-time employees. I mean, Terry Emilini, I call, she always answers the phone. It's great. Kim Shaw, oh my God, she's amazing. Same thing. And I just think it would be really helpful to have that information posted and know, okay, I can call this department and talk to somebody at this time.
That's as much a management issue as an employee issue, and I'm going to leave it up to management to address that. Because I think it starts with setting clear expectations of what we have from all of our employees, and then going from there. And if those are not currently clear in terms of what the expectations are, then that's on us. It's not on the employee.
Well, Mike is there, so I'm bringing
I know. Loud and clear.
And my very last issue involves Hugh. Oh, he's going to be excited about this.
Hang up, Hugh.
Deferred maintenance. Listen, guys, ever since those 2 bridges have been closed over there, Rattlesnake Mountain has become the speedway. And you know what? Something needs to be done. I mean, I come out of my driveway looking east, it's totally blind, so I have to kind of snake out, which I do. Look downhill, it's okay. And sure enough, some white BMW SUV comes roaring up the road right behind me. And I'm like, does this have to happen every day?
Well, the bridge will be open pretty soon.
Well,
Much longer, but we
the
can,
bridges will be open, the better. I've been keeping my mouth shut in regard to this. I told you deferred maintenance. I said, let the road go to hell. But
have you complained to the police department?
I have a number of times.
Okay. Well, we can talk to Chief Fennelly.
I was willing to go out and spend my own money to get one of those solar signs that said 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, I hate
They work.
Go to Staples and get a banner and put it up over the top of that.
I'd rather have a car with a siren.
I mean, something's got to happen before something happens here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to,
Best, John, thanks.
John.
very nice to see you again. It's been a long time.
Right?
I got 2 years left.
Hey, Roxanne,
Yeah, Kate?
hey, you posted, you got that cemetery commission under boards and committees. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Getting things done. Wait, that's Chuck's line.
That's great.
Do you have anybody else with any comments or questions?
I don't see any hands up at this point.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.